So for the first question, alright, so you're required to convert the New Zealand dollar into euro. So 1962 divided by 1.635, then you get 1200. So the family spent 15% of their New Zealand dollar on a tour. So 100 minus 15, then you get 85%. So you take the 1962 times 85%, then you will get 1667.7. But for part 3, okay, first thing that I did was I find the difference in the ratio, which is 4. Okay, this 4 represent 220 meter because it is the ratio of the difference. 4/6 times the total height equals to 220, hence the total will be 330. So for you to calculate the Humboldt Falls height, simply take 330 times 5/6, then you get 275 meters. So for part B, water flow over the Brownie Falls at the rate of 3,680 liters per second. After the rain, the rate increases to 9,752 liters per second. So find the percentage increase. So the new minus ORI divided by ORI times 100. So fill up the blank, then you get 165%. So after the rain, water flow over the Sutherland Falls at the rate of 74,240 liters per second. This was an increase of 45%, hence the original, which is the before rain, times 145%, then you get 74,240. So for you run the calculation, simply take 74,240 divided by 145%, then you will get 51,200 liters per second. And for you to solve question 2a, so simply multiply 3 into both of the value inside the bracket and run the shifting to get x equals to -3/2. So for part B, simply extract the common factor. Okay, so we have 6a and b squared. So after the extraction, we will left with a bracket 2b minus 3a squared. But for part C, number 1, 5 times 2 equals to 10, and a to the power of 5 and c to the power of 9. Because the base is the same, Hence the power, you simply add them up. So for part 2, I converted the 16 into 2 to the power 4, then multiply the 3 over 4 into every single one's power. Then I will get 2 to the power of 3, a to the power of 6 over c to the power of 9. So for your final results, you can actually convert the 2 to the power of 3 back into a. But for part D, keyword here inversely proportional to the square. Alright, so we have the temporary formula which goes by y equals to k over x plus 2 squared. So substitute the value in of 3 and 2, then you get k's value as 50. So y equals to 50 over bracket x plus 2 bracket square. So substitute x into it, then you get y's final results as 1 over 2. Whereby for question E, so I converted their denominator into the same, which is 2 bracket x minus 2. Hence for the 5, okay, I multiply it by 2, and for the x minus 5, I multiply it by x minus 2. So the key assessments here is you need to multiply the negative into the entire results after the expansion of x minus 5 multiplied by x minus 2. So the final results here will actually be negative x squared plus 7x over 2 bracket x minus 2. So for question 3, describe fully triangle A to triangle B. So this is actually a rotation 90 degree clockwise from the point of origin 0, 0. Okay, for part B, I already drew down the reflection of x-axis over there, and triangle A after a vector of 7, negative 5. So the tricky one will actually be the part 3, where it is actually an enlargement from the point of origin with a scale factor of 0.5, which is also 1/2 in our case. For question 4, right? So keyword here, area of the triangle is 30 cm square. So 1/2 times the base times the height equals to 30. So after the calculation, you actually get 2x squared plus 3x minus 20 equals to 0. And use the factorization to solve the following equation. So A is actually 2, B is actually 3, C is actually negative 20, and substitute all this information into our quadratic equation. So negative B plus minus square root B squared minus 4AC over 2A. The results will actually be 5/2 and negative 4. However, for part C, calculate BC's value, right? So you're required to use the variables you've gotten earlier, okay? And you cannot use the negative 4 because for distance or length, negative is not considered. So substitute 5/2 into x position, okay? And run the Pythagoras theorem. So BC will actually be square root of 6 squared plus 10 squared. So your final results, 2 square root 34, which is 11.66. For question 5, pretty straightforward. Simply substitute when x value is negative 2 and 3 into the formula, and you get the y results as negative 3 and 17. So with the two coordinates completed, we can now draw out the curve as shown as below. So question C, a straight line through 0, negative 17 is a tangent to the graph. Okay, so draw out this tangent. So after I drew it out, it meets the graph at the point 2.1 and 1.5. Okay, find the equation of the tangent. So using the two coordinates we have here to find the gradient, which is 8.81, and the y-intercept will actually be negative 17. Okay, so your gradient here will actually varies according to your gradient you gotten earlier. Okay, so if you selected a different point or your line is slightly skewed, okay, the results will be different from mine. So by drawing a suitable straight line on a grid, solve the equation. So compare it with the original equation, which is x cubed minus 3x minus 1. So the excess variables here will actually be negative 3x and negative 2. So by shifting these two variables to the other side, then you will construct a new equation which goes by y equals to 3x plus 2. So I said that when x equals to 1, y's corresponding value would be 5, and when x is 2, y will be 8. So with these two coordinates, we can now construct the last line here and identify the intersection. So we have negative 2.1, 0.5, and 2.7 as the final results. So for question 6, so usually when I solve this kind of question, I don't quite memorize the formula, as we can identify the formula through the units given. So which means we are required to use speed divided by time to get the acceleration results. So 3.0 minus 1.2 divided by 3. So the tricky part here is, why do you need to minus 1.2? Because from the starting, it is not from 0 meter per second. When it starts from 1.2. Hence the results here will be 0.6. But for part B, simply calculate the total distance. So I separate the shape into two parts. One is the rectangular base and the other one is a trapezium on top. So 1 over 2, okay, bracket 19 plus 15 minus 3, okay, times the height of 3.0 minus 1.2 plus 19 multiplied by 1.2. Hence the results 50.7. Whereby for part C, okay, the runner and walker are traveling in the same direction along the same path. When t equals to 0, the runner is 10 meters behind the walker. Right? So the total distance here is actually 50.7. So this is the total distance traveled by the runner at 19 seconds. Okay, the walker at 19 seconds is actually the area of the rectangular base. So minus it off. And the keyword here is the runner is 10 meters behind the walker. Hence, you're required to minus 10 meters into it. So your final result is 17.9. Whereby for question 7a, okay, I fill up all the relevant information into the graph first. Okay, so the first thing that I actually identify is that results of BAO is actually 29 because OA and EA form a 90-degree. Okay, with that 29, we can now identify OAC as 26 because 55 minus 29. And since OA and OC is the same length, hence OCA will actually be 26 as well. Hence we find the minor sector of COA as 128. However, the question didn't specify like the major sector or the minor ones. So this is what I would do. I will list down both of them. Okay. For you to identify the major sector, simply take 360 minus 128. If it's referring to the minor sector, it will be 128 degree. Whereby for ABC, so this one is actually the angle at the outer layer is actually half the angle at the center. So 128 divided by 2, you get 64. And for you to identify CDA, simply takes 232 divided by 2. Okay, it's using the same rule as part C, and the results will be 116. For question 8, okay, so the flight flies from Geneva to Hamburg. The flight took 2 hours and 20 minutes. So the distance is 864. So key things here is to convert the hours and minutes into hour format only. So I took 864 divided by 220 over 60. So your speed will actually be 370.29. So for you to use cosine rule to find the distance of Geneva to Budapest, so simply substitute the information into cosine rule, then you will get the distance of GB as 990.51 kilometers. So part C, I actually drew down the diagram here again, okay, before the calculation. Okay, first thing that I did was to write down the 133 degree. Okay, so this one is actually corresponding to Hamburg's information. So this angle here is actually 133 as well. Hence the balance of it will be 47, because from 133 I drew a straight line down, the total angle will be 180. Hence the balance at the other side will be 20, and this 20 is the corresponding value at G. So find the bearings of Hamburg from Budapest. So 180 plus 133, then you will get 313. Okay, so the reason being, from B we draw a straight line down is 180 degree, and the 133 information is the corresponding value to the other side. Okay, calculate the bearing of Budapest from Geneva. The information I use here is sine rule, because sine 67 over 990.51 equals to sine HGB over 928. So after the sine inverse and calculation, I will get angle HGB as 59.59. So add this value with 20 that we identified earlier, then you will get 79.59. But if you write 79.59, you will not get the full marks, because in bearing, when the value is less than 100, you are required to add a 0 at the front. For part 9a, so first thing that I did was to calculate the midpoint of the interval, and things to identify from the question will be total of 120 people. So simply takes the midpoint of the corresponding interval multiplied by its numbers of people, divide by 120, then you will get 42.8. Whereby for part 2, okay, simply run the calculation, frequency divided by respective class interval, then you should be able to construct the histogram. So key things here is that there's no scale factor involved, hence there's no changes to your value calculation. So for part B, okay, if you were to compare these two graphs, okay, things that I would identify is that people tend to spend less time in supermarket on weekdays, okay, Wednesday in specific, and there's people that shop with less than 10 minutes during weekdays, where during weekend, people normally leave after 10 minutes and above. For question 10 part A, okay, keyword here 90 liters of water flow out in 20 minutes. So simply take 75,000 times 20 times 60. So the results will actually bring you to 90 million liters of water. So for part 2, okay, first thing that I did was I changed the numerator of 90,000. So I put the numerator as 90 million liters of water times 100, okay, because by doing so I'm able to convert meters into cm. Whereby for the denominator part, it is 55 hectare multiplied by 10 to the power of 4 multiplied by 1000. Okay, multiply the 1000 to calculate the capacity. Hence, the final results will be 16.36. But for part 3, okay, for you to calculate the perimeter of the sector, first thing you need to take note is there's two radius here, which is 1 and 2. So their both value will be 8.5. And for part 3, simply take 76 divided by 360 times 2 times pi times r, and r in our case here will be 8.5. So the total will be 28.27. For part B, okay, calculate the volume of this cone. So 1 over 3 times pi times 10 squared times 36, then you get 3769.91 cm cubed, and this is actually equivalent to 1200 pi. So for part 2, actually use the information from the previous part, which is the volume 1200 pi. So the volume of the smaller cone here is actually half the volume, hence it is 600 pi. Okay, then the smaller cone is then melted into two different spheres, and the radius is r and 2r, right? So if you were to add these two things up, okay, the volume of this, the smaller sphere and the larger sphere, it will be equivalent to 600 pi. So after you run the calculation, you will get r's value as 3.68. So it is actually harder to calculate if you were to use the value of 3769.91. So when you solve this kind of question, please stay versatile and analyze which variables should you use to make your calculation easier. For question 11, okay, this is actually matrix question. So I've showed the detailed calculation. You can just refer it at part 1. So for part 2, okay, find the determinant of A. So this one is actually using the Pythagoras theorem, square root bracket negative 3 square plus 2 square. So the results will be square root 13 equals to 3.61. For part 3, you actually need to change the matrix calculation into a simultaneous equation. So negative 3m plus 5n equals to 14 and 2m plus 4n equals to 9. So I actually show the detailed calculation, and the results of m will be negative 0.5 and n will be 2.5. But for part B, okay, so first thing to take note is OB's value is actually 2C, okay, because C is the midpoint of OB. Okay, so for part D is on AB such that AD to DB is 3 over 3 to 5, hence the total ratio here will be 8. So BD will actually be 5 over 8 of AB, and DA is actually 3 over 8 of AB. For the last part, which is the most trickiest information, is OAE is a straight line, OA to AE is 2 to 3. So the total ratio here is 5. Hence OA is actually 2 over 5 of OE, and AE is actually 3 over 5 of OE. So things to identify is that 1 over 5 of OE is actually half A. Hence 3 over 5 of OE is actually 1.5 A. So for you to calculate AB's value, it is as shown as above, negative A plus 2C AD's value will actually be 3 over 8 bracket negative A plus 2C. And CE's value will actually be CB plus BA plus AE. Or alternatively, you can just do CO plus OE, which is negative C plus 2.5A. So results here will be 5 over 2A minus C. For part D, CD's equals to B plus 5 over 8 AB. So results 5 over 8A minus 1 over 4C. So for part 2, find the value of k where CE equals to KCD. So CE's value will actually be 5 over 2a minus c equals to k. CD's value here is 5 over 8a minus 1 over 4c. So simply compare a with a to identify k's value. Okay, so 5 over 2 equals to k bracket 5 over 8. Hence your k's calculation is actually 4. Question 12a. Maria took 2 packets at random without replacement. Okay, so both of them is salted flavored chips is 9 over 38. So to prove that, simply takes 10 over 20 times 9 over 19. Then you will get 9 over 38. Whereby for part 2, find the probability that she takes 2 packets of different chips. So simply takes 1, which is a total probability, minus barbecue, minus salt, and minus chicken and chicken flavor. So your final results, 62.95. So for part B, without replacement, and find the probability that she takes at least 2 packets of chicken flavored chips. So I list down 3 possibilities. Okay, and the total you actually need to add with chicken, and chicken, because they say at least, which include all 3 of them is chicken flavored. So the final results, 5 over 57. Okay, and the 8 over 95 here is the probability that there's only 2 chicken flavored chips. So thank you for watching. I wish you all the best in your exam preparation. If you happen to have any question, feel free to leave it down in the comment. Okay, and if your friends is struggling to solve all this past year, feel free to share this video to them. Thank you.